Hello and welcome to WION special broadcast at 8 p.m. I'm Aisha Sindhu. News from West Asia is coming in thick and fast. Iraq has declared the liberation of Mosul. Does India now renew hope for 39 of its missing citizens who were kidnapped by the terrorist organization back in 2014? Or is this a battle that is an uphill one, and this just the first unsteady step up a slippery slope? We'll also look at reports of a plane being shot down near the ceasefire zone negotiated by the US and Russia only some 48 hours ago. Is this latest ceasefire deal headed in the same direction as ones in the past? Those are some of the big questions we're asking tonight. But first, unconfirmed reports suggest that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the IS leader, is dead. But this isn't the first time reports of his death have surfaced. If it is true, though, what does this mean for the fight against the IS? Is a successor already in the wings waiting to take charge? That's the big question we're asking, because reports have said and are suggesting that the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a London-based organization, has confirmed that ISIS chief Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is indeed dead. There have been earlier reports of the Islamic State leader being killed, but no confirmation ever came in. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights has now confirmed his death. Now, this report comes just days after the Iraqi army recaptured the last sectors of the northern Iraqi city of Mosul, which Baghdadi's forces overran almost exactly 3 years ago. Experts and journalists are still taking the news of Baghdadi's death with a pinch of salt. In fact, many are posting on social media claiming that the news is false. According to the Iraqi news agency Al-Sumaria News, Islamic State circulated a brief statement through its media in the ISIS-held town of Tal Afar, confirming that the killing of its leader al-Baghdadi. The Iraqi news agency did not, however, provide any further details. Now, the US President Donald Trump may have confirmed the news of Baghdadi's death. He posted on none other than his favorite social media website, Twitter, "Big wins against ISIS." Joining us on the broadcast tonight for more on that story and, of course, the others I mentioned at the start of the broadcast is Talmiz Ahmed, former Indian envoy to Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Oman. Ambassador Ahmed is an Indian diplomat and joined the Indian Foreign Services in 1974. He served as the Indian ambassador to those three countries, and he was also the additional secretary for international cooperation in the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. This, of course, is among the many other laurels associated with Ambassador Ahmed. Thank you, Ambassador Ahmed, for joining us here on the broadcast. Also with me is WION's correspondent, Daniele Pagani. He joins us from Erbil in Iraq. And Ramesh Ramachandran, my colleague, will be joining us shortly. All right, over to you first, Ambassador Ahmed. If I can ask you, how credible do you think these reports of Baghdadi's death really are?
None of these reports has any credibility whatsoever. The stories have come from the Iraqi news agency, and they have a vested interest in declaring that their worst enemy is dead. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, the so-called organization, it is a two-man or a three-man body in the UK. It is an opposition broadcaster, and it has hardly any credibility as far as the status of its enemies are concerned. So we have to be extremely skeptical about everything that we have heard so far. And about President Trump's tweet, I think the less said, the better.
All right. Daniele, is that the overarching sentiment that you're coming across as well, that we have to keep in mind that there are a number of vested interests when it comes to the fight against IS, and this might in fact be the outcome of one of those interests?
Well, definitely, yes. Among the community of journalists in Erbil, no one is taking seriously for the time being this news, especially when it comes to talking about Al-Sumaria. Al-Sumaria is an Iraqi channel which has declared Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi dead at least, to the best of my knowledge, 2 or 3 times. So it's probably a mistake. It's very difficult to understand when these kind of leaders, also the organization itself, the Islamic State, I mean, has all the interest in perpetrating celebrating the idea of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi dead. Why? Because then you stop searching for him. Then the coalition forces, the Russians or Assad's forces, or the Kurds for that matter, or the Iraqi army will perhaps stop looking for him and will divert their attention onto some other individual. And also, it will help the Islamic State to smuggle out of possibly Syria or perhaps Iraq, the desert close to Tal Afar, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, if he is still alive. I always say that there is only one way to understand when a jihadi leader is dead, and is when we are shown his or her corpse.
All right, Ambassador Ahmed, as far as al-Baghdadi goes, there's not much that's been known about him. He's not been a very visible figure. Can you give us an idea of what exactly his modus operandi has been and how it differs from, say, other more visible elements such as Osama bin Laden had been in the past?
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is a remarkable figure. He rose to prominence after his predecessor had been killed. He is responsible for rejuvenating the jihadi movement in Iraq. It had been destroyed under the Sahwa, and by 2008-2009 it was in tatters. He quietly and systematically put it all together, and then he declared his own leadership. He was able to then very dramatically capture Mosul 3 years ago. So you have to pay tribute to his organizational capabilities. He also put together a remarkable coalition. He had with him tribal chiefs, he had professionals, he had Baathis, he had generals, he had soldiers, and he had a wide variety of people who came together because they were deeply unhappy with the government of Nouri Maliki. Nouri Maliki was hardcore sectarian. He had promised that he would absorb many of the Sahwa fighters into the national. He instead depended on the Shia forces, on the Shia militia that were backed by the Iranians. It is with this background that we see this remarkable man's achievement.
All right, stay with me, Ambassador and Daniele. Ramesh Ramachandran, my colleagues, joining us in the studio now. Ramesh, as the Ambassador is pointing out, it's been a very well thought out sort of ascent to power, if you will. But also, do you think that the stealth and the discreet manner in which al-Baghdadi has operated so far has made him such a furtive character that everyone has been on the lookout for, which also explains in many ways why there have been so many reports in the past of him having been killed, which have been proved false successively?
Indeed, Aisha, we first heard about his demise or reported demise way back in the last week of May. And since then, there's a lot of speculation whether al-Baghdadi is indeed dead or not. There were various reports, conflicting reports. But the Syrian Observative Human Rights Report, confirmation has come as a shot in the arm for Syria and its allies, namely Russia, Iran, and also the Hezbollah, which is based out of Lebanon. So clearly, this puts one chapter to rest. But that said, to my mind, the main worry is the ISIS or the Islamic State may be on the retreat. Al-Baghdadi may be dead. But what about its so-called virulent ideology? Will that survive? What will it metaphors into? I don't know yet. We saw the Al-Qaeda and the ISIS compete, and as Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed pointed out, it's there are many various factors at play here. So it remains to be seen. Can ISIS reinvent itself going forward? In what form, what shape, where exactly it will sort of take root? We don't know yet. But these are early days, yeah.
All right, Daniele, if I can come to you, that's a very pertinent point brought out by Ramesh, that it's not really about the fact that is al-Baghdadi dead, but the ideology, the spread of which has been of concern not just in the Middle East, but all the way across in the Philippines as well. The IS leaving its imprint in different parts of the world. What exactly is the structure of the Islamic State like, and is there a succession plan in place already? Do we know of a successor perhaps already waiting in the wings, which is going to be a new headache for everyone who's fighting against this terrorist organization?
No, we don't know about any possible successor as of now. It is perhaps a secret information. Obviously, the line of succession is ready. Normally, it's always ready. It's for a jihadi leader, death is considered as one of the most possible events of his life. So often and enough, they themselves prepare their line of succession, but we do not know currently what is the name or what are the names wherever in the world that are on the list to succeed Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. When it comes to the structure of the Islamic State, I always try to make it simple and think about a franchise. We can call it as one of the many big brands that we know. They have places, they have the same brand all over the world with some similarities, but they all adopt on local context. For instance, there are big food chains in India do not serving certain kind of food, and the same chain is not serving a certain kind of food in Saudi Arabia, and it might be different again when it serves certain kind of food in Argentina. Okay, consider this terrorism. Okay, apply terrorism instead of brand, use the word terrorism, and this is exactly the structure of the Islamic State. It was born out of the heart of the so-called Muslim land, West Asia, Iraq. It was born as a reaction to what the Americans most likely were doing. We also have to perhaps remember that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi got radicalized in one of those jails in which the Americans put the radicals in order to de-radicalize them. So it's a sort of an enormous brand structure. They use the name and they apply to the context several specificities. This is why it's so successful. And it's all based on a twisted and terrible interpretation of the Islamic religion.
All right, I've got time for one last question on this particular segment. I'll take that to Ambassador Talmiz Ahmad. Ambassador, as everyone's pointing out, there have been reports in the past and perhaps those reports will continue. But if we are to believe that Abu al-Baghdadi is in fact no more, that he has been neutralized, is this a huge challenge for IS, or is it really the loss of ground, the drying up of funding? What exactly is the bigger problem, so to speak, facing the organization right now?
See, we don't know much about how these organizations function. We only have a hazy idea, and we can make judgments on the basis of what we see rather than what we know about their inside working. I would imagine that there are very serious challenges for the Iraqi government rather than for the Islamic State. The Islamic State and various other jihadi groups take advantage of state breakdown. When state authority is weak and where it promotes discord within its own communities, then you find that the jihadis get the opening for them. So first, the Iraqi state will have to promote a sectarian accord within itself, that which was not done by Nouri Maliki earlier. This is going to be a very serious challenge. Based on this, you will have to then ensure that you can give reconstruction. Nearly 1 million people are refugees in Iraq.
Right.
There are many of them Sunnis. They need to be rehabilitated. They need to be absorbed in the mainstream of national life.
Right.
And then, of course, you have players from the outside, from the region, and they are up to mischief. They have their own agenda and they promote discord as well.
Hold that thought, Ambassador. We're in fact going to talk about Iraq in just a short while from now. I thank all of you for giving us your perspective on this story. I'll request you, Ambassador, and Daniele to stay on. Ramesh Ramachandran, thanks for being with us on the studio on this story.